Hello, I'm James Zimoha. Welcome to Africa News. Let's see your headlines. Flash floods killed nearly 50 people in Nairobi, Kenya, as President William Ruto sends aid to victims. Rwandan activists say higher representation in leadership positions is shaping policy debates as the country celebrates Women's Day. Nigeria halts all pilgrimages to Israel and the occupied West Bank due to ongoing conflict in the Middle East. Kenyan authorities say nearly 50 people have died in floods that swept across the country following heavy rains on Sunday. Thousands are displaced as search operations continue. Isabel Nakria has our top story.
Families of flood victims are filling mocks across the country to identify the bodies of their loved ones. The capital, Nairobi, was the most affected with more than 20 deaths reported. Now roads were submerged, hundreds of vehicles were washed away and property was destroyed. The Kenya Airways authorities had to divert flights to Mombasa from the main Jomo Kenyatta International Airport. Now experts say unchecked development, which includes many informal settlements cropping up, caused the severe flooding in parts of the city. Officials warn against approving new structures without considering plans for drainage channels. Now, Kenya's President William Ruto announced emergency relief for affected families. Humanitarian agencies and the Kenya Defense Forces are leading the distribution of food and other urgent items. Now, across East Africa, heavy rains are predicted in the coming weeks, and residents are asked to look out for potential floods. Isabel Nakiria for A News in Kampala.
Marking this year's Women's Day celebrations in Kigali with a walk and run event, activists in Rwanda say higher representation in leadership positions is shaping policy debates while highlighting the benefits of investing in women's leadership.
Women and girls filled the streets of Kigali on Sunday, joined by the First Lady Jeanette Kagame for a very significant walk and run. This time, it's not the usual car-free day. Instead, the country is uniting to mark the International Women's Day. For many here, the day is both a celebration and a reminder of the long struggle for equality.
The amazing thing, we also did it with our First Lady on a very International Women's Day. Today's International Women's Day, and she came to support us, of course, as usual, and the way our government supports women. It's really amazing when you see how women in Rwanda are in everything, in the government, are leaders. They're the ones like up there.
Where we are today is a very big thing. As you've seen, the minister Nerim Kazaide, she's the minister of sports and she's a lady, so we appreciate where we are today. The government itself gave them the way, like a platform to use. So what is needed today is the ladies to feel confident that they can do it.
Across the country, women's voices are increasingly shaping national decisions. With more than 60% female representation in parliament, Rwanda holds the world's highest share of women's lawmakers, a milestone many say has transformed public policy. Gender advocate Yvonne Chiza says the results are visible in reforms on inheritance, family law, and stronger protection against gender-based violence.
The increase of women participation in leadership has significantly impacted the development of gender-responsive laws. We have seen changes in family laws, inheritance laws, because we moved from where women were not allowed to inherit to this date anyone, including women, are allowed to inherit, and different other rights, GBV legislation. For
organizations defending women's rights, the day is also a moment to reflect on progress and remaining challenges. The advocacy group Haguruka has spent more than 3 decades providing legal support and psychosocial services to survivors of gender-based violence. This year's theme, Give to Gain, highlights the idea that investing in women multiplies social and economic returns. In Rwanda, supporters say empowering women politically has delivered exactly that.
We have seen women impacting different, women leadership, impacting different aspects of policies. And then I'm not going to say there is no male contribution to this because they have significantly contributed. But I think women being on decision-making table, it has brought a lived reality. Yes. So the policies made, laws made, they reflect what's really on the ground, and they are more effective and implementable.
Advocates warn that gender-based violence and economic inequality continue to affect many women, even as legal protection improve. But for many here, the progress, which is already so apparent, shows what happens when women are given a seat at the top table.
The pilgrimages of Christians in Nigeria to Israel and other parts of the Middle East have been suspended due to escalating tensions in those regions. Tesema Kande has more.
The suspension was announced to guarantee the safety and comfort of Nigerians following the outbreak of hostilities in and around Iran. Nigeria has the largest population of Christians in Africa, with more than 90 million in the country. A statement issued by Nigeria's Christian Pilgrims Commission said the visits to holy sites in Israel and Jordan will be suspended. It also said about 600 pilgrims who had been in the Middle East last week have now arrived back in Lagos. The Nigerian government said it is monitoring the situation, promising to resume pilgrimages to the region once the fighting stops. The US and Israel a few days ago launched attacks on Iran, killing its leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, among other senior officials in the country. Subsequent airstrikes and drone attacks have killed over 800 people, according to the Iranian Red Crescent. Iran has retaliated by firing missiles at Israel and its allies. Nigeria's Christian Pilgrims Commission has urged everyone to pray for peace in the Middle East. Tassim Akendi for A News in Jos.
Still in Nigeria, a World Bank report has highlighted persistent gender gaps in the country's economy, pointing to weak protection of women workers' rights. Analysts warn the imbalance could limit economic potential as millions of people prepare to enter the labor force.
Across Nigeria, from markets to offices, women play a central role in the country's economy. But a new paper by the World Bank says structural policy gaps are limiting their full participation in the workforce. Its Women, Business and the Law Report 2026 presents analyses of laws and policies affecting women's economic opportunities across 190 economies. For Nigeria, it didn't make for pretty reading, scoring the West African country 50 out of 100 on gender equality laws, suggesting some protections exist only on paper. But when enforcement systems are assessed, including funding, services and institutional support, the score dropped sharply to 21.7 out of 100. Even more striking, Nigeria scored 0 on parenthood policies, highlighting the extraordinary absence of federally mandated paid maternity leave, paid paternity leave, or explicit protection against the dismissal of pregnant workers. Yet many activists believe the numbers don't even tell the whole story.
I would say, in my personal estimation, that I think it's even worse than that. And most of the time, when you talk about some of these statistics, much of the time, they're looking at the former economy. But much of Nigeria, more than 70% of the country, is the informal economy, where there are basically no regulations.
In Nigeria, the absence of parental support policies is a major concern. The report notes that the country lacks federal legislation guaranteeing at least 40 weeks of paid maternity leave, paid paternity leave, or structured childcare systems that allow parents to remain in the workforce.
I remember that before now, there were several banking institutions in the country where women were not expected to be pregnant for a certain number of years. They were reluctant even in employing married women, as if marriage is now a crime.
At the level of government, Nigerian women are grossly underrepresented. At the moment, various groups are pushing a Nigerian Gender and Equal Opportunities Bill, which seeks, among other things, to address extreme gender disparity in governance by creating additional reserved seats for women at federal and state parliaments. The World Bank says the issue is becoming increasingly urgent. Over the next decade, 1.2 billion young people, half of them women, are expected to enter the global workforce. For Nigeria, closing the gap between gender equality laws and real-world support systems may determine whether the country can fully harness that potential.
The army in the Democratic Republic of Congo says it has uncovered a weapons cache hidden at a mining site in the northeast of the country. Hundreds of rifles and boxes of ammunition were found buried underground at the Noro mining site. A news correspondent, Chris Ocharmga, has more.
The DRC Army spokesperson for Ituri Province, Lieutenant Jules Ngongo, says they found the weapons buried at the Noro mining site in Jugu territory. An assortment of weapons and ammunition was found during the operation carried out after a tip-off from the population. The Congolese army suspects the weapons belong to a militia group known as the Convention for the Popular Revolution, CPR. The group is led by Thomas Lubanga, a former Congolese warlord who was sentenced to 14 years of imprisonment in 2012 by the International Criminal Court for recruiting child soldiers. Members of the CPR militia group have been carrying out attacks against Congolese forces in Ituri province since last year. The DRC Army has launched an operation against all armed groups in Ituri province to protect civilians and recover illegal arms circulating in the region. The province is rich in gold and timber, but has many militia groups competing for control of minerals and natural resources. Chris Ochamringa for A News in Kinshasa.
Now to sports. The World Rally Championship moves to Kenya next as drivers arrive for the iconic Safari Rally, which will take place around the lakeside town of Naivasha, roughly 90 kilometers north of Nairobi. The Safari Rally marks the third stage of the 14-event season, which began in Monaco in January and will conclude in Saudi Arabia later this year. Fans in Kenya have already had the opportunity to meet several of the drivers, including current championship leader Elfyn Evans. The Welsh driver claimed victory at the Safari Rally last year during a campaign that saw him finish second in the overall standings.
Yeah, of course we're not to see the recce yet, so we're not fully aware of what conditions we're going to face. I mean, it's, by the sounds of it, it's been pretty wet in the lead up to the rally, so yeah, the recce will be quite important to take good notes and of course to try and get a lie of the land, but yeah, until then it's difficult to predict too much.
Well, that's all we have today on African News. Thank you for watching. Stay tuned to A News.